and we're streaming to YouTube. We're streaming to Twitch, and we're
now recording.
Welcome to the Yanggang Roundtable. It is 5:15 p.m. Saturday, November 7th. I have with me Ariel, Faydoni, Feiku, Mia. My name is Shale, and we have Amish Patel here, our guest. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Oh.
All the way from Canada. My internet sucks. It's Rogers.
Oh, man.
Rogers.
Yeah, we were saying right before we started the show. Everybody hates the internet, and here in the States, it's like Comcast or Time Warner that everybody hates. And Rogers, I guess, yeah, no different. It's just a different villain. Same scheme, right? So we're a basic income advocacy podcast, right? One of the things everyone could do with their basic income is pay their exorbitant cable internet bills, and among other things. So, we usually talk about basic income, poverty, electoral politics, but we are a pretty casual group, and you could talk about whatever you would like, really.
Yeah, so...
Well, I was saying before... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so let me just give everybody a background information. So I sort of myself snuck into his channels by putting on the name Yanggang into who he works for. Oh wait, there's a echo.
You're an echo also, yeah.
Amish, maybe oh wait a minute, it's gone. Okay, good. All right.
We're trying to sell Amish on the virtues of Discord here, and we're just not doing the best
right.
job.
Yeah. But now he's chosen, so I think it is his stream.
So let's...
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, right before this, there were who suggested, should we switch to Zoom? And I was like, no, we're here. This is working. Let's go. So this is on me. I take responsibility for this.
Never too late.
Yeah. We could switch to Zoom if Amish is having this level of trouble with Discord.
Yeah, because he has not had this level of trouble when we were on.
Right. Now the question is, like, do I keep this? Oh, are you back, Amish? You're back.
Yes.
Okay.
I am here. I mean, I can hear all of you perfectly, but I know that I just know mine is shitty on my end. I don't know what my Discord is. I've never done Discord. Even on the other show.
Here's what's happening. Every time you hear audio, Discord's trying to broadcast it, and so that's why we're all hearing an echo, and also it's taking your bandwidth. And maybe can you put on like headphones or something? If not, you could just use a software mute when you're not talking. If you just like click your name, you can click the mute button too. It's another option. Either one. There you go. Thank you.
We just want to make everything as difficult as possible.
Yeah. Anyway. So when you do talk, just unmute, and we'll all, yeah.
Okay, there we go. That's much better.
There you go.
Okay, so basically,
I just.
Well, now you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Unmute to talk.
Oh my god! Now can you hear me?
You're good. Now you're good.
Yeah. Now I'm good. Okay, but then it's messing up your audios.
No. It's totally fine as long as you mute when you're not talking.
Okay.
Or you put in headphones,
cool.
in which you put headphones in, you will never have to worry about that. Or you turn on noise suppression if you're on a laptop in the settings.
But that's a whole
thing. Anyway, you're frozen again.
So
this is.
Okay.
You know, I guess the internet has frozen in Canada. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess.
Or maybe
tell us about Amish.
They don't have the internet is not as good as the healthcare.
He didn't have these problems when we were zooming together.
Yeah, we can zoom. Let's zoom.
We're trying to do a comedy sketch. Didn't you know? You didn't get on the thing, like
right? Yeah.
Difficulties comedy sketch. Like, come on, guys.
Zoom.
No.
So okay.
Oh, good. You're back. Thank you.
It's a bad internet connection comedy sketch.
Yeah. We're making do. Cracking wise.
Well, tell us about our guest that you invited.
Okay. So basically, let me start. So the thing is, like, I first saw him because I'm a fan of this scam buster, and his name is Coffeezilla on the internet, and his name is Steven. And the thing is that, like, he did a whole thing on Trump University. There was an ad where he lives in like the Gujarati paper that there's like he's from that community in Canada, and basically his dad said, you know what, you're hardly going to make any money as a comedian. Trump University is like holding these thing, and then I want you to like become rich. I want you to become like
Wow.
make tons of money. So he went to the whole thing, and he saw that it was just like they were basically trying to scam everybody with this like bad idea. And so he had that interview, and then later the scam buster made Amish a co-host because Amish was so funny and interesting. And then I called into the show when they were doing their podcast, and I was trying to sell them on the virtues of a universal basic income to stop scammers. Because scammers prey on vulnerable and desperate people, but when people have a basic income, there would be less prey to say like, oh, this scam is my only hope. My only hope is like to make tons of money, and I'm just going to take out all my life savings and get a Trump University course or some bullshit like that. So they kind of agreed, but then his co-host Steven brought up the part of like people becoming lazy and people not wanting to work. But Amish thought it was BS because on Canada was doing the $2,000 a month CERB, and we only got the 1,200 one-time check. But then like the main host put on all this like American propaganda of like thinking that it's communism, but Amish was like, but that's bull, that's not communism. So we just kind of spoke about that. So that's the background.
Classic Red Scare. He's got the classic Red Scare stuff, which apparently was debunked. Like the communists were never going to come to America. Not to take it all the way to that level, but there is like a conspiracy that a lot of people believe in that communism's coming, and any kind of healthcare or whatever that's going to make everyone lazy. My family thinks it too. We have a cousin in Virginia Beach. She's a full hard Trump supporter, and she's just talking shit about our family. She's like, this guy's getting free money, now he's lazy. This guy, your cousin over here, useless, getting free money, turning lazy. People really believe that.
Look at him, lazy.
It's not so different here. It's not so different here,
Look at him, lazy. Do not want to work.
Totally, man. They're like, why would they work then? What are you stupid? Then they'll all sit at home. I mean, it's a very negative attitude.
I think that's fairly typical of like why people come to the United States in the first place. It's sort of that like immigrant hardworking culture, like the type of, I think, people that tend to come here. So you get like it's almost the American dream kind of gets reborn like every generation, and that bootstraps mentality I think ends up persisting.
But doesn't everybody know the old phrase, it takes money to make money? How are you supposed to be able to invest in yourself to move forward with plans that you want to actually actualize if you don't have the ability to invest in the things you need to push that?
That's the part we can't talk about.
Yeah, I feel like it takes money to make money is only for businesses. But on a personal level, it takes money to make you lazy. Then you're gonna sit at home. But our businesses get all the money. Like, our CERB is always about to get cut off, but the business CERB, it's like the government pays like 40 to 60% of their salaries, and there's no question of cutting that. That's going to go forever. In Canada, I mean. There's no, like, with our $2,000 a month, it's always under question. Like, Trudeau only did 1 month, and then Jagmeet Singh had to come in and be like, no, you got to do it, keep it repeating, whatever. So I think they went to 4 months, and then Trudeau got caught in a scandal. He gave his mom, I think, $200,000. And he was about to get hit with a big scandal, but he said, you know what? Give everyone another $2,000. And that's kind of how he got out of that. Approval ratings intact.
Man, if only
approval ratings intact.
If only Trump had tried that,
He would definitely.
He would have won.
He would have won. He would have won.
He would have won.
For better or for worse.
That's all he needed. He really screwed himself on that. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's you can't even give Biden the credit of this win. It's
No,
all Trump.
absolutely not.
He lost himself.
Yeah. He's
Such a loser. And they talk about him like he's actually he's like a great guy or something. It's so weird.
Incredible loser when he is forced to do anything without an immense advantage over everyone else he's competing with. So here he's got, other presidents
like perceive his own self-interest though. I mean, like he was briefly extremely popular, like at least for him. He almost broke 50%.
Trump is like Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Nothing but hell was coming out of this Pandora's box, and we finally got to close it. And now we just have to hope that we can push it aside and bury it and forget about it.
Well, we got another Pandora's box now.
Yeah, this is just it's a different type of horror that's coming.
It's crazy because the COVID numbers are just higher than ever. Like they're through the roof. So we just forget about that. Hopefully, we can just put this election aside now and get back to to COVID, because in Canada it's like nonstop. But there's something about an election that makes everyone go, okay, no COVID. So I think it's been a week of like no COVID, pretending anyway. But the numbers are going through the roof.
It's incredible how political the virus is. Just like in terms of when people care about it and when they don't. Like it's just shocking the different standards everyone applies to it. Like right now, there's all these like celebrations out on the street, and it's like, all right, well, I guess it's not a thing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's hard to say like, hey, don't go for a protest.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Trumpers tweeting not because they actually believe it, but just because they're vindictive. Oh, why isn't Joe Biden telling people to stop this super spreader event? Of course, like they were at their own rallies a few weeks prior, sure. But everyone's a hypocrite. Terrible hypocrisy is all we can hope for.
Convenient.
Yeah, these Trump people are like, he's such a psycho. They love that he's a psycho. And then as soon as this, like, we had so many people in our comments being like, hey, Trump is exposing voter fraud. He's going to expose voter fraud in America, Amish. It's like, leave it, man. He voter lost.
There's no incentive to commit voter fraud.
That, like,
like where's the incentive to commit voter fraud on the individual level? I want to know who has been like, yeah, that's worth it. I'm going to do that.
I mean, say what you want about Hillary, but Hillary took the L. Like when it happened, she took the L and just like called and conceded. But Trump.
Speaking of voter fraud, did you guys hear that it was a QAnon supporter who tried to break into Philadelphia and stuff the ballots? That's the guy who had all the AK-15 and or AR-15, not AK-15.
And what side was he on? Was he going to stuff the ballots with? For whom?
For assumedly, since he's QAnon for Donald Trump.
Okay. I can't keep up with who's for who.
You can't convince these people though. Like no matter what, they're always going to be like, no, Trump. He would have saved us from voter fraud. He would have helped the country. Like they're on his side and they can't admit that he lost.
I mean, they like that he opposes another villain, which is the Democratic establishment, who have been torturing us for many decades here. The Republican establishment is terrible as well. It's just Trump is, he's a bomb thrower. He is making the people who are elite feel embarrassed, and so people are like getting a rise out of that. That's what they're really voting for. It's it's like it sucks. We're in a bad position here.
He's got a real cult following. Like you look at these fake gurus, same thing. Like they'll get scammed. Even this Trump University I went, to this day, my dad's like, no, it's a good class. It's used. We tried to I showed him the binder. I'm like, look at this. We could Google all of this. You can still find a way to be like,
investment fallacy, because people don't want to take the credit for making a mistake. They've invested in this thing, so they will just advocate for it so they don't take part in its failing, because it's so stupid.
Sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah, sunk investment fallacy, sunken cost fallacy, same thing. It's just like,
I think that Amish, what do you think? Like Trump was like the fake guru for all the United States.
Yeah.
Basically, he had two classes. He had a real estate class and he had an MLM, and it's the same thing that he uses to get his crowds out. Like he uses very much like that cult leader mentality to brainwash everyone, and they teach it in these sales classes. Kind of, it's very much like so. That's why there's such a fine line between all of it. There's like fake guru, cult leader, politician. I guess they're all right there. Salesperson. Yeah. They're all like in this similar kind of class, and that's why people thought I was being very insulting to Graham Stephan yesterday. But even Graham Stephan, you watch his videos, and he plays the game basically, and he'll bring on another con artist sales guy but they kind of respect it. They respect it with each other. That's why I do find it a little shocking that these guys are like, Trump is a great guy. He was going to save us from voter fraud. Like, you've always loved him for being kind of a con artist.
Yeah.
You know, why are you so shocked? It's like,
right? Why are you so
obviously
duped?
would cheap more than I.
Like, why don't you stick with your story? If you love him for being con artist, be like, yeah, I still love they did all that shit. Like, stick with it. I don't know, right?
I hate to interrupt the flow of the conversation, but I'd like to get better sound from our guest, and I sent you a. I wanted to show you how to turn on your noise suppression.
Okay.
And I sent you a screenshot to show you how to do that. Or you can just look in the lower left-hand corner on your laptop. It should say video connected. And then next to that, it will have some sound bars. That's the noise suppression. If you could hit that, and make sure that it's on and not off.
Noise suppression powered by Chris.
That's the one.
Yes.
It's on.
All right, cool. Keep it on. That's good.
On now already? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And just make sure maybe I'm gonna scoot a little closer to your microphone, maybe then.
Yeah, but can he hear us? Okay, good, because those headphones mean that.
Yeah,
okay.
I can hear you.
You sound good. You look
nice,
good.
nice.
Everything's good.
So here's my thing for UBI where it ties into all these. Oh wait a minute, I'm still getting echoes. Amish, maybe if you muted for test. Oh, okay. The echoes are gone. So my thing is that like the UBI can work because like these cult leaders prey on desperation. So if you get people out of that desperation, they're less what is it, vulnerable to being sucked into the cult. Because I remember when I buy like sometimes an online course or when I went into Herbalife is because I thought that I didn't have enough and I wanted more. But if you give people something, you know, like that's actually going to get them out of that phase of like wanting. They're going to be less susceptible to these to get sucked into like a cult or into even something like white supremacy. You know what I mean?
Practically everything that takes advantage of you.
Also, just might be giving people an extra $2,000 to spend on a fake guru. No, I mean the desperation is one thing, but people are still just sheep. I find like they just want an answer. They want someone to tell them what to do.
And I think,
look, I mean, you're gonna save some people, I think, with the 2,000. But then just imagine all the gurus that are going to be like, give me the 2,000.
I hear you, and I think that's a little bit of a problem, but I think what'll happen is, okay, somebody will give the guru $1,000, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, but then 6 months in, they're going to be like, this guy fucking sucks, he's trash, I'm not going to go with him, and they'll try something else, and maybe it'll take them 10 years, at the worst. Maybe that's like a person with a ton of problems who has very little self-reflection, just can't figure it out, but still, they're way better off with the UBI. They're going to have a much easier life going through that with the UBI than without, and they're probably going to go through it either way, you know what I'm saying?
I think at some level you have to be comfortable with people making bad decisions with the money that you give them.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
Yeah,
you know, there's the idea is that at least a lot of people it'll help them. You know?
Another thing that it does.
Yeah, we got to get over this idea of like. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, go ahead and go first. I won't forget. I'll just keep it in mind.
I was just going to say, like, we do have to get used. I think that's the big thing is like people are like there is this judgment of like why I'm working, why is that guy not working? It's like live your life, man. Who cares? Like who cares if they're whatever they're doing with their money, they'll let them do it because they really think that it's going to make them lazy but really the issue is like why are you thinking about them? Just give them the 2,000. It's nothing. It's cheaper than welfare. Let them figure their life out, and some people never will. But better to have someone never figure their life out with their food and their stuff covered than someone figuring out their life, and then it's like they could die tomorrow and it's just going to be violent on the street. You know, like
Sure.
that's
Amen.
another big issue with it. I think
Absolutely.
the violence could be a
Amen.
thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of that kind of ending up on the street type thing, people who get involved in these things often overinvest themselves to the point that they lose things that they were close to, like items they saved up and such, having to pawn it to be able to invest in the next level of the scheme, or get caught up in cults and such that ask more and more money from them. If there's $1,000 coming in a month or 2,000 coming in a month, no matter what you do, no matter how badly you overinvest and make a mistake, you've always got a chance to come back. And
To
I think everybody
rebound.
always deserves a chance to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%. 100%, not only the rich people. But then these political parties are so fake guru-y. Like Trump does it. I mean, I didn't notice it so much with Obama because I always thought he had a good cause. But with Trump, he's sending out these emails like, hey guys, be in the Trump gang, get the hat, exclusive hat for my supporters only. Like he's got the hats, he's got the merch, he's got the, like, you know, they're coming after me, so we need your help. You know, be a real man for Trump or whatever. So he does apply a lot of it to his sales tactics, even as a politician.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Although I'd
That's
say
it.
also, you know, other politicians have sort of gone that way too, just because it is the. I guess it's possible to reach so many people that so many people have started this weird kind of pandering, and it's been normalized. You know, just technology has changed culture. But yeah,
Yeah.
Trump
Oh,
is a TV trash man.
By the way, the last thing me and Amish talked about on our on my YouTube channel was like his sandwich theory of Democrats and Republicans, where you got the super rich Republicans on the top and the super poor Republicans on the bottom, and the Democrats fell somewhere in the middle. I said see this up, but like he can do it better than me.
Yeah.
Can I share an image with
feel
you?
like celebrating today with me?
What?
Yeah, please do.
Because today is the first day when we woke up in the morning and said on the news that AP had called it. The Associated Press had called it for Biden. So did you all feel like celebrating immediately, or a sigh of relief, or how did you feel
I'll
today?
talk about that. But Amish, if you want to put an image in the live stream chat, please just put it there, and I'll put it on the stream. But I'm gonna tell you how I feel because I've had feelings today.
Oh
Man, I thought I'd feel, I don't know, maybe a little better, but I don't feel better at all. Just seeing, because I mean, it's not seeing the amount of relief that everyone feels equates to this terrible false dawn we're in, and I'm just, the sense of dread's been building all day because the work everyone's been doing is going to stop. All the pressure that everyone's talking about, you know, pulling Biden to the left is not going to happen because everyone's tired, and everyone's just like, it's going to be good now. We've entered the self-delusion phase. We've entered like grief marketing. I see it on Twitter. Everyone had nothing else to give. The election's done, and they're not going to do any more politics, and we're not getting any more stimulus ever. We're not getting any jobs ever. The economy is never coming back. Nothing good will ever happen again.
I've had the exact impression from Twitter. Like, people have been tagging me in posts all day saying, we're going to keep going. Please don't lose heart. Please don't lose your energy. You know, we're not going to let the Yang Gang dissolve. We're going to keep on fighting. I see the exact opposite reaction. I see people feeling more empowered than ever instead of crushed underneath 4 years of hell. I think this is a chance to really embrace the ability to have an effect on something.
I think you're being a little too negative, but like we have to push and keep pushing and stuff like that, and let the Republicans who are being duped know that there's a Yang way.
It's just now all these Democrats are being duped. Not all of them, but like 75% of them are just going to be going back to sleep and thinking Joe Biden's good enough. So I'm very concerned.
The reaction to Yang saying that the Democrats have to pay more attention to the working class? It was not well received by liberals, and I think
Yang was called a racist again. Yang was called a fascist again, and we can look forward to more and more of that.
What's going to happen? I think
Chris, how are you feeling?
Who's calling Yang a
Chris,
racist?
how are you feeling?
Crazy people.
I'm feeling similar to Shale, you know, on the level of I'm not going to say nothing good is going to happen again, because I think there are opportunities here, but I think people really underestimate centrist neoliberal Democrats and how much resistance they are going to face. They are not your they're not your reluctant allies. They are a different enemy, and you're gonna see it like really soon.
Yeah. Yo, I'm having a hard time showing you guys my pyramid thing. It's actually a very good, I think it really speaks to this, because right now we are really looking at left and right, like one's on this side and one's on this side. But I do feel it's more like the right is on top of the pyramid. And then, yeah, it's like establishment Democrats have power. And then there's like more Democrats below them, like Yang even below that. And then it's like the Trump supporters are at the bottom. And we look at it like this is one team and this is one team. But really, the Democrats the establishment is more right-wing than we think. It's shocking to me that like AOC, Bernie Sanders, they're not the ones canceling people. It's like it's like Hillary's canceling people. So like this whole thing of like being too sensitive or being like extreme radical, it's actually the establishment is radical in like attacking their own people. Yeah, there's nothing radical when it comes to right-wing. Then it's just like, okay, well, you got to make a deal and you got to be nice and, let's not be difficult and let's do whatever we need to. But then when it comes to like taking down Yang, taking down anyone to the left, it's like the mainstream is the extreme on their own people. So it's a tough situation. It is like a weird caste system though. The richest people kind of control everyone else. So you have establishment Democrats. They're the upper tier of the pyramid, and they're kind of saying, "Hey, I'm like my boss told me to control you," but their boss is Republicans in a way, because that's where all the money is. So they're kind of being told what to do, and then that's why they can never stand up to them too. They've always had this like the Republicans always seem like ready to play hardball, ready to be like, you guys are unreasonable, you guys are out of control, whatever. But then the Democrats, when it's their turn to throw back, they always kind of go, well, let's make a deal. Let's get something done. They do seem to be pushed around a lot.
See, it's pro wrestling. It's pro wrestling. I don't think they're pushed around. I think actually the Democrats are really good at what they do. The thing is, part of their performance is making it look like they're kind of incompetent and not effective. They are super effective at like shutting down any challenge from the left. Like they are ruthless and effective, and like suddenly their competence like shoots like from what appears to be like 20% to like 100%.
Wow. I have no delusions that the people in power aren't like good people, just in general. What I do have a lot of faith in is us, specifically the people who are advocating right now, not giving up on it and pushing it through until it happens. I really don't think that the part to be worried about is the people, because we've all decided and seen what we could have had. We've all seen the shade pulled out from over our eyes when the trillions of dollars went into businesses and we were shafted. We saw that with our own eyes. I don't think people are going to forget that they were left to suffer and left to lose their homes in the middle of a crisis. I think that's going to empower people to do more.
I think people believe that Joe Biden would have made things go differently for them, and that's the problem. So they're placated thinking that we got the guy in, and now if something like that happens again, he'll do the right thing, when in fact he would not have given us any more stimulus than Trump.
Very establishment, very much deal maker. Like no vision from this guy. Biden, there's no vision. He's always been a pushover. He's always been a guy that Republicans can really like. And you see this in the Anita Hill case. I don't know if you guys saw the documentary about Anita Hill, but Biden was like kind of in charge of it. He came in on her side. It was like Anita Hill against Clarence Thomas. I think it was 1991. He came in on her side, but this is indicative of his whole career. He says he pays lip service to what's right. He knows what's right. But then these Republicans, they're aggressive with him. They're like, listen, Biden, just shut up and do what you're told. And he'll just come in the next day and be like, come on, man. Come on, man. That's like such a pushover slogan of his. Come on, man. Let's just finish
Jack. Let's go, Jack.
Yeah, he's used. He is a pushover. But the good thing is that pushover is better than the guy who has a vision of dominating everyone, which I think was Trump. So at least you got like a pushover, but he will be pushed over by whoever hits hardest. So
I think
that's got to be from the left.
See, I think
this time better be the people. So, Chris, are you physically close enough to Shale that you could just walk over there?
I could.
You could.
Could you walk over there and just like give him a hug?
Why?
Because
I'm
I want to
fine.
give Shale a virtual hug from all of us because we are all here with you, and
Thank
we're
you.
going to continue on for another year of podcasting.
Yeah,
I don't know how long we've been doing it.
You gotta like get these. It's good to say it.
Yeah,
You don't dwell on
the
it.
mission remains the same, like
Yeah.
regardless of who's in there, and that part hasn't changed. Your tactics
all
might have to
here.
change a little
COVID.
bit.
Gotta do virtual hugs.
It's to see people. I see people celebrating it like this is the end of the road for them, and not everybody, but even just the people that were working. Even if 25% of the people who were working with us before are like, we did it, we don't need to do anything ever again. That's a real problem.
Nothing that's ever been accomplished in the background is like, for most people, when an idea finally pushes through, they're like, oh, where the did that come from? How did this thing happen? But there's people like us in the background who stick to it afterwards. Even if we do lose a percentage, it's the people who stick to it, who push the idea forward, and who keep moving, who make it eventually happen. And we get to then feel good that we have changed something, even if nobody ever even knows that we were part of it. That is fundamental to their lives when it finally does happen. And I don't think that it takes a lot of people to make change. I think it takes a lot of dedication to make change.
Yeah, it's still it's doable. It's just
Yang, well spoken. He's doing it.
It's just disappointing when people are like, I just don't know what to do with these people who are like, yay, it's over. It's just so frustrating. It's just
let them.
Well, I don't think that any of us.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm not gonna be like, you can't feel that. It's like, it just really upsets me.
One or 2 months into his presidency, or 4 or 6, people are gonna see that it sucks, and it's just like nothing is happening.
I hope so. My fear is that they don't.
And then more people are gonna become Yang. The thing is that why do you think I bring people like Amish on here? Is to get out of our echo chambers. The biggest problem in politics is not the politicians. It's average people in their echo chambers, not talking to people out there, and just losing faith in everything.
So I want to push back a little bit about what we think of as the establishment Democrat. Okay, so the establishment Democrat right now, as you guys are talking about it, is some wealthy person who has probably been a politician for a while or whatever. But the establishment Democrat that I see is basically just older people. Like in my small town, right? The people who've been doing it a long time, who've been going to national conventions, who know how to do all of the things, who know every year they're supposed to do, how do you write a resolution? How do you change the platform? How do you do all of these things? Who is a precinct chair and how do you do that job? Like the people who know those things, that's who I see as the establishment. And they're not wealthy. In my area, they're just like regular people who have been doing it a really long time, who are really passionate about what they do. And they're passionate in a different way than us because we see a new change happening, right? They're all about like their team. They're all about vote blue no matter what. Just protect the team, and you're constantly like, this is your family. They're, like the other people as their family, which is really strange because we should be emulating that. If we were doing that, we would be the new establishment, right? We need to be the people that stick together no matter what, and we're voting for each other as a team. But we're not a team. Like, we don't agree with the policy in the Democratic. And so, like, when I show up at the meetings, I'm not part of that group. I'm not the establishment yet. I'm like the new person. So even as somebody who's 46, right, I'm thinking of myself as an older person. I have 3 children, one of which is grown up now. So, as far as I'm concerned, I should be granny age, but I entered this group and I'm the youngest one. So it's really still just about, just imagine that the group the age demographic is shifting, and we're shifting into those positions of power. We're going to become the new, establishment. It's just a matter of time, but we need to make it happen faster because it just feels so urgent right now.
Yeah, I think the boomers in general were like extremely traumatized by the McGovern election, and I think that is like pretty much colored their politics ever since. They're kind of stuck in that
McGovern election.
Oh, God, I forgot because I'm terrible with dates. It was in the 60s. McGovern won the primary. He was a real socially progressive, like hippie candidate, kind of. And,
Wasn't he anti-Vietnam or anti
I think so.
Was he
Yeah.
the one who said, "Hey, let's let communism do their thing, and we're capitalists and we'll beat them fair and square"?
I don't know
And he
about
took him out of the
that part
Democratic Party. I remember. I think I saw a documentary about him.
Yeah,
actually
like I'm
great
not an
documentary.
expert on him at
Guy.
all. But he got wiped out like in the general election. He just got like absolutely destroyed, and I think that was like a defining moment for a lot of boomers who were left leaning, and
this
it
is the
stuck
thing
with
with-
them even to today. And Reagan too.
Yeah. Well,
I
but this is
do-
the thing with establishment Democrats is that they are being indoctrinated into a system that you guys are trying to change. So even if they're young and they're just starting, they're going in because I know I have some friends that are kind of involved in that, and I'm always like, who's paying you? Like they'll come in. Like one of my buddies, I do a podcast called "Let's Come to an Understanding," and even my podcast partner Drew, he's involved a little bit in American politics. And he always has these like, people like Biden and he's going to do well or whatever. And I'm like, who's telling you this shit? It's like it's the establishment. They're trying to get people to think that way and to work their way up like that. And then, and that's what always screws the real progressive people is that they kind of go in and there's a great documentary. I think it's McGovern, but the one that I'm thinking of, the guy lost in the Democratic primary. So the Democratic primary, he went in and his big thing was stop all the Cold War nonsense. It's a waste of money. Let's just stay in America. Let's build ourselves up and be a better country. And basically, like the Democrats, and this has happened so many times to them, they just get pressured into getting rid of guys like that. Because they get pressured in. It's the same reason why Biden passed a very tough on crime bill. Because when it comes down to it, the Republicans push the Democrats around and they say, you're weak. With you in charge, these black people are going to commit crimes.
Oh,
We lost our guest for just a moment due to the internet lag.
If we give this, we'll catch up. And
But I would say they're really pushed around by their donors, not the Republicans, really. The Democrats.
I mean, they're the same people.
Yeah.
They're like, it's still the same like agendas. They just kind of the right and the left hand of the
establishment.
Yeah.
It's like they make a show of being pushed around, but if they want to make a stand, they can make a stand as well as the Republicans when it's like their job's on the line. Maybe even better. They're wily, the Democrats.
Two wings of the same turd.
Yeah.
Oh, did we lose Craig?
He's back. He's back.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the donors say, hey, don't actually pass this bill that's 80% popular with your constituency because I give you more money than your constituency. And they're like, yeah, that's true. I won't pass it. And that's the Democrats go and they go to their constituency because they still need the votes. You're like, I tried my best. The Republicans are so very mean, so very tough, so very hard. You got to vote me again and vote more of my friends in so we can stand up to Republicans so they're not so tough to us. And this con's been going on for a long time.
Big deal. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, Jack.
How much? How interested are Canadians in this USA politics right now? Is it like?
Oh, we love American politics. It's like football.
You love
it? First of all, we're living in the American Empire. I say this all the time to people. It is the American Empire. It's basically you don't realize it until you watch some documentaries about history, whatever, or even if you look at American foreign policy around the world. There is like another kind of pyramid is like.
Oh,
damn
man.
It. Man, he was going to drop some wisdom.
Like Canadian internet.
These Canadian secrets we're missing out.
Yeah.
This portion of the interview has been censored.
We should I'm sorry, we should do another one on Zoom if we can because like we'll see.
Do that.
Yeah, because I was talking to him on Zoom and this never happened.
We had such a good run with Discord. Like this happened a few months ago consistently. We switched to Zoom for a while, but since we come back to Discord, it's been really good. This is the first time it's happened.
Yeah. Maybe it didn't happen because it was just two of you. I don't know if that makes any difference, but there are six.
Maybe it's Joe Biden's fault.
We did it. Hang on.
It's not that's a joke.
We did it. Wait, I can't do that. Wait, give me a chance. We did it with our New Zealand friends, and it went out without
with Jeff.
But yeah. So wait, Amish, maybe it's best if you don't use video. Maybe that's giving up some of the.
My camera is very sexy.
That's fine. We'll hold the video
that
down
was-
here.
Well,
You just,
anyway,
you just
we were in
speak.
the middle of what he was talking about the we're all living in the American Empire, and then go ahead.
Yeah.
You said something. Yeah.
So Amish
Uh-oh.
is not in the channel on my side. Oh, is it? Yeah, he is. Amish, if you can hear us, go ahead and tell us about the American Empire. See if we can get at least your voice. No voice right now. So
No.
that was not working.
Man, I was having such a good time with Amish. He's a great guest. Thank you for bringing him on, Ariel.
Man.
Too
Yeah.
bad. Well,
Yeah, well,
like I said, nothing good will ever happen again.
Yeah.
It's wait.
Yeah, we need to get you like some
Social things
black
have been-
eyeliner, black lipstick, put
Yeah.
you all get you all emoed out because
see,
that's
there's
how
a
you
certain,
feel.
Yeah, that's right.
I have 3 bars now. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, you see, you
Yeah.
sound more
Yeah.
clear.
The video connected. It actually is showing me like there's like 3 bars within Discord. So I don't know. I was just saying like we're living in the American Empire. America's number 1. If you're in Europe, Canada, Australia, you get to be like a number 2. Saudis, Israel, Saudis and Israel get the special position in there. Japan, obviously, and then everyone else is kind of like 3rd-class citizen. And depending on how like, and it is the poorest and the most populated countries that are in the bottom, and non-white mostly. I guess South America is actually pretty white, but you know, in the East, like India, China, stuff like that, they basically don't get to have the same rules. They don't get that American dream, that chance or whatever. They're passed on this thing. So it's like, it's weird. It's one of those things where you got to be involved in it, I think. Like, I don't think it's so dumb to be into American politics. If you're Canadian, the Americans are on our border. Like, they're going to take water. Like, they're just taking fresh water out of Canada.
Delicious Canadian water. We love it. We can't get
It's
enough.
the best water.
We hate our own water, but yours.
yeah,
It's delicious water. It's the Great Lakes. It's the perfect water in the Great Lakes. It's
some
great.
of that's ours too. I mean, there's important.
Oh, yeah. No,
I mean, who owns the lake, right?
There's it is international water.
land. Well, you know what they
Well,
do?
that's
They just
one
put a
answer.
pipe
Yeah,
in,
that's
they
one
suck
answer.
it in from the Michigan or like from the American side. You suck it out. There's like 25 places where they're telling the Canadians that like this is actually our land. Like I know the map says whatever, but like when push comes to shove, like there's 25 spots where the Americans are even like, we could come and take this.
I'm sorry about that.
You know where it's going to get really messy is with the North Sea opening up for shipping and oil exploration.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah, that is actually.
You guys have like a lot of that territory, and we might be psychos about that. But
well, I think the Americans are going to help us keep China and Russia. Are you talking about like in the north? Like
like
north?
the extreme north, like the North Sea.
I think China and Russia are going to come in, and the Americans are basically there to be like, "Hey, leave Canada alone."
Probably.
You know, but it could happen. It would have to melt a little more. We'd have to destroy the planet a little more, melt that water, and then it's going to be prime real estate.
Do you? So I mean, like, what does the state of the American Empire look to you from outside? Like,
it looks like it's falling. It looks like a pretty standard falling empire.
Yeah.
I think the projections are saying that India and China are going to be number 1 in about 20 years, and that's why you're seeing them start to fight with each other too. China's already flexing all around the world. They're taking over big parts of Africa. They're doing it. People are calling it a more gentle colonization, like a nicer one, more beneficial to Africa.
it's kind of more mercantile, like almost.
And
Yeah.
they have a new the Belt Road Initiative thing too. It's very you can always hide it in economics, and it's probably a better way to do it. It's more humane, maybe. Like you change with the times, so it's a little bit nicer. But then
until they call them the debt.
China, they're not nice to their own people, even. You know what I mean?
They're very low human life value over there.
I know there's definitely some of the debt aspects of it. Like I know some African countries are starting to get like some red flags about it, but I mean that's we still.
I have to disagree.
Tell us.
The reason I have to disagree is because I think they are good to their people.
Not in Xinjiang. I think Xinjiang province. Not if you're Muslim. If you're Muslim, go to jail. They re-educate you to not be Muslim anymore. They actually, unless you want to call it like a free school for the Muslims. It depends how you look at it. Like you could look at it as like the Muslims get a free school, but at the end of the school, you learn to stop being Muslim. That's basically their re-education camp. They have kids in it. They have 1 million people.
No,
And
that's
the
not
number one
true.
argument that they make is like, what you think we're bad, what are the Americans doing? So that's a
No,
fair
that's
argument.
not true either. That's also not true.
I
In
mean, I
fact,
can
I'm just
send you
going to
guys.
say none of that is true, and it's a bunch of hooey that's been made up by the West. Xinjiang is doing very well at any videos, travel logs that people have, actually gone there to look around. They see lots of Muslims being left alone to be Muslim. They have a lot of wonderful Muslim sites that are, their own historical thing that's Chinese Muslim, and it's a little bit different from other Muslim areas. And that's just completely untrue. It's just something that keeps getting repeated until people believe that it is obviously true. Because Chinese people, we talk about the Great Wall, right, in terms of the Great Firewall now. So the Great Firewall prevents Chinese people from seeing what's happening on the outside.
Right, but that's the problem too. Of like, that's a government that wants to hide things, right? Like, why would people make up that they're putting Muslims in jail?
True.
Why would anyone want to put?
No,
why would
that's
someone
not
want to
true.
make that? Because the BBC did a great
that's
piece on
not
it.
true.
There were survivors of the camp that put their hand up and said, "Hey," because they were saying this too. Like the people from China were saying these concentration camps
And
don't
if you
exist.
check out some debunking sites, you'll see that.
What's that?
Do I need to start enforcing a 2-minute per person talking
Sorry,
thing so we can actually understand what's going on here?
Let's do one at a time. Faye, go ahead.
What I wanted to say is that these things that you're saying are repeated so often but that is not true. And if you'll find that it's very hard to get the Chinese perspective because the Great Firewall prevents you from also getting that information from China. So the firewall is not only to protect Chinese from us, it protects us from hearing anything that Chinese. And that is actually a serious problem.
Yeah.
Right. So we believe that our media is telling us the truth when, in fact, we don't get offered the
That thing's got to come down. We should, as a world community, have a vested interest in removing the Chinese firewall. I think, really.
The firewall.
Real reason for that
that's up to
firewall.
them, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to them, but we can, as a world community, have a stance. We can have a position and an opinion.
Real quick? Can we let our guest respond real quick?
Yeah, can we get our guest? Yeah.
It's hard without the video. It's like you forget.
No,
about
it's
it.
true.
But
You
no,
seem,
honestly,
yeah.
It's what I'm finding. Like, and Faye, I've heard this argument. They did and on the BBC they did a great piece where they had some loyal people from the Chinese government. They were on stage. It was incredible. I'll send it to you. And they were saying the same thing. They're saying 1 million people because the accusation right now is that there are 1 million Muslims in concentration camps. Now that is contested. It's not like it's really hard to prove because there is a firewall. So these guys were denying it at the BBC in England, and a bunch of Turkic Muslim people, they put their hands up at the end, and the first 3 questions they had were 3 people who were survivors of the concentration camp themselves, and they said, hey, if they don't exist, how come I haven't been able to see my son in 15 years? How come my husband has disappeared for this minute? So look, I don't disagree with you that it's overblown, and I'm sure there's the majority of Muslims. If there's 1 million in jail, there's probably 50 million that are walking out free because this is the great thing about China. Actually, one of the great strengths is that they can put together a 100-year plan. The Americans can't do that. Americans are quarterly. It's like if we can't fix it in 4 months, it's not going to work over here. I feel like. Whereas in China, they can put a 100-year plan in place, and part of that 100-year plan is to erase Islam, from what I can tell. Now, the government themselves, they put out some great videos. So, forget about what the BBC puts out or anyone else puts out. There's one I can send you from CGTN, which is a Chinese-owned media company, and they have this great video about Xinjiang, and it's a beautiful video. It's like a beautifully shot documentary, and it shows this border guard, and they're saying that this border guard, he catches people at the border, puts them in jail, whatever, and they don't tell you until the end that the people that he's catching at the border, it's not people trying to come in to Xinjiang. It's people trying to leave. And they're pointing this guy, they're showing this guy as what a beautiful leader. He's at the border. He's fighting for China. He's not protecting China from someone else. There's Muslims in Xinjiang saying, we got to get out of here. Same thing with Tibet. They made it illegal. I mean, their philosophy is loving kindness. And they took over Tibet in 1951. And there's just so many atrocities there as well. So I think, look, China has a plan, and I get it. It's an economic miracle. They've lifted so many people out of poverty, but the price of that is you got to get on board with the system. And the system is Han Chinese. We are like, even the fact that the West is in power right now to the Han Chinese, that's like an aberration. That's like it's a mistake. China's been in charge for thousands of years, and they will be in charge again. I think that's the kind of attitude that they have. And I've seen them say as much. So I don't know.
So that was.
Who knows?
So I would like to ask Faye, what of that what of that is consistent? What Amish said is consistent with your understanding.
What of it is consistent?
And where does it differ?
Okay,
Yeah.
this is very simple. What I understand, based on what he has said, is that he has not sought out any pro-China information. He has sought out repeatedly and been offered by YouTube.
I watch CGTN.
He probably sought out and being offered, right, things that are pro Western.
No.
And so if you wanted to find out more, I would send you some things. I could send you some things that would talk about it in a whole different way. For example, I did not hear you mention any sort of terrorism that happened in Xinjiang.
No, but I mean that's a little bit like saying, hey, if we're being mean to Muslims, it's like they did a terrorist attack. Who does a terrorist attack?
That's
less than 1% of the population.
The West justification for what we do, because there's terrorism, so we do a lot of things.
But you can always use terrorism as an excuse to put Muslim people in jail, but like I don't think I'm Hindu, so listen, I'm Modi in India, same thing. They do all kinds of atrocities, and they go, but they're terrorists. Less than 1% are terrorists, and then they use that as an excuse. No, as far as my media sources though, I love watching Chinese government propaganda videos. They're great. They're very well shot. I'll send you guys a documentary.
Perhaps you could watch some just general travel logs of people who are just visiting, who don't have an axe to grind and who are pro-China because they've been there and it just seems fine. It seems absolutely peaceful and wonderful to them.
A friend of ours went there recently, and he was talking about. I think he ended up in Beijing, but he had mixed opinions about it. But the overall, he was just impressed by the amount of like activity, and I want to say like the feeling that things were happening there. That he said he didn't really feel too often in the West these days, and I think that was sort of telling in some ways. As far as like the actual like atrocities thing, I generally assume any empire commits atrocities, and including us. So
and that's actually a lot worse than what China does, because America is way beyond control. So if I were to compare the two countries, I would say that the United States is committing way more atrocities than China is. And China actually repeatedly shows itself to be kind and gentle as far as a superpower is going to be. For example, in the case of Hong Kong, it took them months and months and months before we had atrocities. But here in the United States, within days of George Floyd, the entire country was, on fire with, police brutality. So when you compare the two, you actually should be saying, wow, why aren't we more China? And we talk about human rights. Whereas all I hear from people in general is, oh, China is people. I don't see that. I see them as being holding back as much as they can. If you're going to be a superpower, you're going to lose control of this area.
But that's also part of that problem is that whole firewall thing is like it's not really easy for us to even get their perspective because we don't have access to it. So it's on some level, it ends up being like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, especially with the Hong Kong stuff. The Hong Kong stuff is so heavily censored by the Chinese government. Like they put people in jail retroactively. So in the last 10 years, if you said something negative about Hong Kong, they were already putting those people in jail. So it is hard to get news out of them. But I do agree with you, Faye, that the number one excuse that they have, and I'll send you guys even the video on the BBC, it was Mehdi Hassan doing the video about it. So he is like a bit of an activist journalist too. But the best argument they made is they would say, oh yeah, but America does this, this, and this. So, the people that are even working for them and loyal to them, they don't deny it. They deny it where they can, but most of it is like, hey, it's a big country. Some people are going to die. Like, you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. And that's kind of the mentality they have. And a lot of big empires have that. I do think that in the next 20 years, we're going to see China become number one. And then it's going to be a power fight between India and China. India's kind of keeping their relationship with everyone else in the world a little more, whereas China is doing their own thing a little bit. Like when the Americans try to mess with them, they're just like, who are you to tell us? We are the number one power, and we will be number one again. That's the kind of sense that I get from the philosophy. And
India seems to me to have a lot more.
And wait, and Faye, you're from Taiwan, right? So that's like.
I'm from Taiwan. I'm not Chinese from China,
Okay.
but I have family in China. So the reason that I'm, as a Taiwanese person, people would expect me to take Taiwan's side over that of China, but I don't, because I know that history is not made up of, just one side. So having lived in the United States and having family in China allows me to know that the Great Firewall is there to protect people way more than from misinformation from Facebook and from Microsoft and from Google, from these corporate interests. If they were allowed access to China, they would be doing all here, except they would be beholden to the United States government, which is another. Okay, so if you
That's a great point.
were
I had
China,
not thought of that. Yeah.
you would
I
allow
didn't think of that
Facebook
either.
Never
to
thought
have
of that.
everybody's private information. But that's what we think about when we talk about TikTok. We're concerned that TikTok might
Please
have information.
get a little
but
closer to your
TikTok is
mic,
a
Faye. You
United
keep cutting
States
out.
corporation.
Sorry to cut you off, but get a little closer to your mic.
Oh, yeah,
You
but
do keep cutting out. Thank you.
TikTok is like a United States corporation with Chinese investors, and we're already concerned. So why? So China's like, well, if you're concerned, put a firewall. We are not allowing you to spy on us because we don't allow Microsoft to come in, create everything, and take over. We don't allow Facebook to get everybody's private information and then later complain to them about it, because we're not dragging Facebook into some corporate or, legislative hearings to ask them to do what we should have, right? We, the people, are taking responsibility for it. And there's nothing wrong with that as far as I see. China was smart. They are the last place you can go if you're trying to escape the United States.
Yeah. No, hey, fair enough. I mean, these big, like, no one's hands are clean. And yeah, numbers wise, it's hard to make the argument that there's so much worse. I mean, I just saw the Michael Moore documentary about the 2016 election, and they were showing the conditions in Flint, Michigan, and it's all stuff that you'd say, no way. It was like hard third world shit. So it's, no offense to anyone, but it is one of those things where we do have this judgment on other countries. India gets it a lot. China gets it a lot, especially because they have big countries. So you're just going to have those kind of bigger numbers, and it's going to happen. But America's no better. I mean, it is hard to make the argument sometimes because people are just like, oh, you think even with women's rights, but especially with like violence and killing people, it's like America technically would be number one in that game because they have the 800 military bases around the world, and it's like part of their economy almost, and we kind of justify things like Iraq and all that stuff.
Before you guys go on, what I love about this conversation is that like you can agree with some of each other's points, and it's civil, and it's much better than the crap we get on CNN and Fox News that they'll never concede a point to another person. I just want to say that.
Oh, thanks, Ariel. I think it's awesome that Amish is here today, and I wanted to ask, do you feel very connected to India also?
Yeah, I have family there. I still talk to them. I video chatted with someone yesterday. My dad's sister. So I'm very much connected, and I'm very much like aware of the news, especially the India-China border disputes. Like they're always fighting back and forth. So I know quite a bit about the history there and like the politics and stuff like that. In some ways, yeah, China's killing it. I think they're going to be number one soon. India doesn't have the same strictness. I guess my other question though for you, Faye, but like, what did you think about what do you think about Xi Jinping taking power for life? Does that not cross the line for you?
Okay, so some of the things that don't cross the line for me is because I am so disappointed with our democracy right now, just like Shale. Like this whole last year, everything I learned about our democracy made me feel a little bit worse, right? Yeah. Like, oh, well, we run different candidates, but then, the money really controls who gets to win. And then the, establishment kind of picked the candidate. And if, right, the Supreme Court couldn't stop them. And, we have all the elections, but if there's no ranked choice voting, so people constantly argue about whether you're throwing your vote away. I mean, there's just so many problems with it. And so, yes, there are problems with Xi Jinping, but there's also some it's not like there's some benefits to it, right? There's some benefits to having a really good leader, and people really like him. So it's difficult for me to say. I feel an outsider there, right? I would have to really understand them a lot to understand why they would allow him to do that. I think the people really do have some say in their government there. They just have it in a different way. So, for example, like in India, right? I think Indians should be really surprised at the kind of democracy. I remember that there was a whole series on Indian voting and how voting works, and that was on oh man, I can't remember his name for a minute. But it was like a late kind of the late night show type of thing where they do the comedy, and they had a whole series.
Yeah, Daily
I'm
Show.
sorry?
Daily Show?
It might have been the Daily Show when they did a whole series on how the Indian voting works and how it was really the greatest democracy in the world. That they have more voters than we have, and that they have a higher percentage of voters than we do. And they really try to give every single person a chance to vote, no matter, and that there were even directions like if you didn't have enough limbs, like you could vote with your elbows.
Yeah. Yeah, they're making it work. They're making it work.
They find a way to make that democracy really work. And these are the kinds of comparisons I think are really important. Like people have solutions in other countries that they're already using, right? And the Chinese solutions don't work for us because we are nothing like them. We're just so opposite. But maybe in India, which has, and has a deep understanding of, the British system and how, we have the same economics in a lot of ways. I feel like there's a lot we could be learning from.
Well, India is fundamentally just like trying to be West. I think that's a major difference too. Like they're trying to be Western, whereas China, they have a different mentality of like, we're here for China. There is a loyalty to the country that really India doesn't have. Like India has states that want to separate. Some people are communist. There's like so many religions. And this is honestly like, the re-education camp thing. A lot of people in India are like, hey, why don't we do that? Why are these people here? Because they separated the country. They had a very bloody separation of Pakistan and India. And a lot of Hindus in India are like, why are there still Muslims here? We made a country for you. Go to your country. Why are you changing our laws to match your thing? But they're trying to be a democracy and they're doing that whole thing. So, I mean, it's all stuff that we can sit over here and judge. But yeah, when you're over there and you got to deal with that mass of people, you're just going to have different issues and different ways of going about it. So like, I get it. That's not me saying being callous towards the Muslim people, but it is like me saying like, everyone's has their own way of dealing with it. And
it's not, I'm not saying that they just have
these situations to be able to put in much input, but I know that both of you have the best intentions in mind. So I don't think anybody's going to like think that you're like trying to distance yourself from any situation or make excuses for anybody. This is just an open conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm certainly not assuming that China has any good, has necessarily good intentions all the time. But I would like to, just push, what I'd like to do is push back and say to people, have you actually tried to find out anything that is not being offered to you by YouTube or Google or, like Facebook,
Right.
I need people to like try to find out something different. And also, the other problem is the things that we're judging them by. You have to actually imagine that your perspective is and your ideas of their motivations, right, are built on things that we already understand. So when we see China take an action, we assume that they have the same motivations that the United States might have if we took that action. But when in fact they don't, they have a whole different way of thinking about things. So for example, little things in the house, right? If I was eating with my children and at a big, and I'm in the Chinese family, the way that we eat is the mom is cooking and all the people rush to the table. Thing comes out of the kitchen and we sit down, we start eating. Well, what do the Americans do? They wait. They have to wait for the mom to be right. It's rude to start eating with. And then you might sit down, you might say great, right? And everybody's ready, table set, then you eat. But in Chinese families, that would be the not the rule. The rule is everybody rushes in to come eat, and the mom is still cooking in the kitchen. So which one of those is the correct way, right? It has to be like, how do you think about it? With the way that Chinese, the food tasting good is respecting the mom. So if you wait for the food to get cold, it doesn't taste good, and then you've disrespected her cooking.
I kind of go
Right?
back.
So it's more important for you to be there. Yeah.
I kind of go back and forth on like the primacy of culture and kind of government and whatnot. 'Cause sometimes I think it seems really important. Other times, though, I think it's more about how things are expressed rather than like a fundamental difference, I'd say. But I don't know. Like, I've probably said this at one point, but where Shale and I live, we're like one of the big refugee areas for the Falun Dafa, the Falun Gong from China, and they are. Man, they hate China in a way that like no one in the West like could. So you get like from them they were extremely pro-Trump because he picked a fight with China, and they give God, what's their newspaper that they put out around here? They put out in both Chinese.
Yeah, the
and,
New Epic Times. I hate to do their
New Epic Times. Yeah. So like they have actually a big compound actually like maybe 10, 15 miles east of us. That's you can actually see it from the train. Yeah, it looks like something like right out of like Asia.
We could go.
You go by it and you're like, what the heck?
We've joked about going occasionally. I don't think we will. I'm not sure.
No, because they actually do have armed guards.
Right. So it is very pretty from a distance. It's a very nice structure.
But I've actually seen disputes between like different Chinese immigrants, like both from like Falun Gong and more from the more typical, I guess, Han culture. And it's the parts that were in English were there wasn't much of it in English, but the parts that were basically like, oh, we you do this to us, and then the other person say, no, we don't, and it really did not help clean up any misconceptions I might have had about China at all.
The Falun Gong is definitely one of the leaders of the movement to discredit China, and I pretty much, don't believe that minority is necessarily the, really a good view of what China is. I think that people need to travel more, come and see it without the politics, and get to know the people first. But it's hard to do that, We can travel virtually by watching shows. It's difficult
the Chinese government puts out great videos too. They have a channel called CGTN on YouTube. It's incredible, and you really get a sense of the difference that we have in our values, because like the video that I was telling you guys about, where they were honoring this border guard, in their minds they are honoring that border guard. They're not looking at it like we look. Like, you almost get to the end and you're like, holy shit. They love this guy because he didn't let someone out. It's like a twist ending. But in their minds, they're like, look at what a great job he's doing. He's protecting our border. So we don't have that history that they have. They have a 4,000-year, 3,000-year history. Same thing with India. So, for example, like when it comes to discrimination against Muslim people, they have a different mentality. Their mentality, China's mentality, I think, with Xinjiang, the province, is this was taken over by people and we're just correcting it. And it's the same thing inside of...
No, that just isn't true.
Well, that's CGTN. I mean, that's straight from Chinese government.
No, Xinjiang has been around.
They publish it.
Xinjiang has always been Muslim for as long as people remember. It goes back over 1,000 years, and Xi'an also.
Yeah. No, but that's what
when
I'm
you
saying.
see all the statues of the people underground, these are not things that we consider, and we treasure them. So the fact that we have Chinese Islamic food is something that we love it. I mean, every city has Chinese Islamic restaurants, and all Chinese people can eat there, not just the Islamic people.
No, sure. But I'm talking about the government's official stance.
Having a vegetarian dish, Hmm.
Sorry, say that again. I missed that.
I'm just saying that, I mean, these types of attitudes come from, I think, all of this social media forced to consume. There really isn't an option, is what I'm saying. CGTN, if you watch it and you say that's propaganda, then we need to find some other things to watch. For example, there's a great channel called, maybe later, Zephyr. There's another channel called Li Ziqi, for example. And all she does is, it's very apolitical. It's just a channel where she shows you do all of the things in the countryside community all by herself. It's just her and her grandma, and her grandma's too old to be working. So she builds everything in her house. She makes all the food, and it's just very simple. But like, first you have to kind of like just step back from the politics and say, these are the people, these are their values, and then if a people like this got together and made a government, how would it be different? It would be different than anybody else.
I will say one thing real quick. You could do that with people in America too.
Yeah,
and
you
ignore all of the problems that we have with America. So I don't really think that looking at apolitical people helps inform you on the politics of the area.
Totally. I mean, you look in
But it
Canada
does.
too. Like we have indigenous people here that we're still doing settler colonialism on Canadian indigenous people. But if you ask anyone from India, anyone from China, they'd say Canada's amazing. Anyone from of course, we don't care. We don't even know about it. Like our media is actively trying to suppress any kind of indigenous issues. So, and I've been on their land. It's like they get different stuff there. I don't know. They get like different internet connection. They have different like whatever. But I mean, the reason I bring up CGTN, because Faye, earlier you were saying that I might be watching some other people's propaganda. I'm watching straight from China. And look, the point that I'm trying to make there is India is doing the same thing. They right now they just took over a Muslim mosque that they say 100 years ago or maybe 1,000 years ago was Hindu, and they took it over. So this is the perspective on the inside of like Hindus, and that's the sense I got from that the Chinese documentary too. The CGTN channel in general was like
I think assuming that China is doing what India is doing, and assuming that they would be doing what is unfair. I don't think that they're similar in that way. And that's something that my grandfather once said. My grandfather was fighting against communists when he ended up being pushed into Taiwan, right? And then later he was brought to the United States in his old age to be with his daughter. Everybody can take care of him. So he got to live in these three places. And in the United States, I remember when Mao Zedong did one thing right. He said that he did not try to become like the United States. So there's something in that, is that the people are different. They have their own.
Yeah. No,
right. They have everything is their own, and they do it a whole different way.
In
Taiwan, we don't.
Thing like CGTN, which is their channel, like the government. It's a government produced channel. It's very polished, very tight. And I mean, that's the argument that they're trying to make on the channel, that this is an same with Falun Gong, is it? It's the I think you were mentioning this before, Moto?
Yeah.
Falun Gong, right? Or
Falun Dafa.
Falun Dafa, sorry.
Falun
It's the
Gong
same
is
thing, like the official, and same thing with Hong Kong. It's like the
I think everyone cut out on me.
Oops. Oh, Falun Gong is not Muslim. They are Christian.
I thought they were Buddhist. Huh?
I think we lost our guest for a little bit.
Well,
I want to say, like, in Taiwan, we are colonialized. So in Taiwan, we haven't had Britain, but we have been colonized by many different groups, including the Dutch a long time ago, and the Japanese more recently had us as a protectorate or something like that. And then then we went back to the Kuomintang, which came over, which was my grandfather and my grandparents on both sides. And during that generation, it was really hard because even though we're supposed to be all, sort of ethnically Chinese, right? We were kind of taken over. But to this day, really, I would say that we're very much the little brother of the United States because we depend on the United States for, military strength and many other things like that. So when I was little, growing up, I actually listened to American style music. And when you go to Taiwan, the kids celebrate things like Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas. These are not traditional Chinese things. So when I compared China to Taiwan, it is more natural because it hasn't been corrupted like my country was in Taiwan. So it's, yeah. Mia, you were going to say something?
Sorry, go ahead.
We only have about a half an hour left, and I do want to talk a little bit more about the election in the U.S. before we go, because it's like here, and also specifically because I know Shale's going to feel very upset about this if I bring it up, and I know that we'll get a good reaction shot out of him. How do you feel about Speaker Pelosi putting in her hand again to be leader of the House after swearing she wouldn't as part of the conditions back in 20?
I didn't know that she swore that she wouldn't. So I had no opportunity to build inaccurate expectations. So.
Wow. Wow. Very well said, dude. You're going to be in politics.
I think they're going to.
I hope so. I deserve an easy job that's really overpaid.
How do you feel about her in general putting her hand back in?
Very negatively. I don't like it. Not at all.
Yeah,
I presumed she would. I always presumed we would never be rid of her. So
they all just
here
want
she is.
Power.
Yeah,
from her cold dead hands.
Right. I don't think she'll. I think she'll come back until she's dead. Go.
So Amish works with actually Steven, who runs the CoffeeZilla channel, and he said that like we want new blood. I think the problem around the world is that we need more younger people involved in like entertainment, in politics, in all these things, because everybody we have now is like a dinosaur. They're these geriatrics. And they're not with the times. Like if we invited, if they had to do some technical things, they wouldn't know how. And I think that's the problem with our world right now. Too many old people in too many positions of power.
Yeah, a good one too. From China too, and maybe India, is that they actually have engineers in politics. In America, no engineers. They have TV stars. They have lawyers.
All lawyers.
It's all lawyers, which they're basically just taught as a lawyer to use the law to make your case. But they have like I think Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about this. How in China they have a lot of engineers running, in politics, and it's actually very successful for them. And Yang is a great example of that too. He's like one of the smartest thinkers, very technologically advanced. Right. And people just can't keep up, I think.
Amish, I wanted to ask you, I know this is deviating from America again, to what degree do you think Modi in India is comparable to Trump? Do you think, because sometimes, there's a sort of like a global right-wing revanchism that seems to be taking place. Do you think the comparisons are accurate at all?
Yeah, they definitely have, like, they're both he has nationalism. There is a Hindu nationalism happening. And, and that's something I know Faye's going to disagree with this, but I think China has a similar thing with Xi Jinping. It's like they have like our people are number one, and whoever else is here, you got to get in line or go to wherever you're supposed to be.
Yeah, to me, it strikes me. I think it's a symptom of the breakdown of the like neoliberal trade order on the international level, that you're seeing at least countries making efforts to kind of renationalize or reassert their national identity. It's kind of interesting to me, but yeah, back to America, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think this all ties in with like, no matter, what you believe or where you are right now, your mind should always be open to like new information and new evidence. Because I think like a lot of this stuff with like scammers or salespeople who want to make a ton of money, and with politics, it's this whole team, I'm going to wear my jersey mentality that you see, whether it comes to fake gurus or whether it comes to politicians, that people are in this paradigm lock and they can't open their brains to like other ways of thinking or other ways of seeing the world. So they get stuck in this the cost fallacy, sunken cost fallacy with whatever idea they have, whether it's with politics or whether it's with like a scam artist.
You know, to that end, I wonder if us becoming not the world's power anymore, but 2 or 3 behind India and or China might be the shakeup that allows us to redefine our culture in a way that gives us better politics.
I'm certainly tired of us pretending that we do everything perfect no matter what it is.
We're kind of weird with like, I think, and it's interesting because I think Trump failed in part because the idea of an American national identity is always sort of like shaky to begin with. You know, we're a you know, either depending on your perspective, either an immigrant nation or a settler colonial nation, but it's none of us are really, almost none of us anyway, are really from here.
Yeah,
And we all sort of adopted this like secular, like sort of like low key society idea.
Yeah, it's weird how in America, like on the one hand, it's like I thought we came here for the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and you have these conservatives telling you, no, you came here because it's a Christian nation, because you love Christian Christian values. It's like I thought it was sex, drugs, rock and roll. I thought that's what the whole point was. So
yeah, I mean, that's never been the case. Like
technically, the first people to come over here were Protestants, and were fleeing more loose and free, loving Christians off in England. They wanted to be able to be their strict, work it away selves.
Yeah.
I mean, you also had Sephardic Jews, though. There's even like a really early American.
I'm a Sephardic Jew.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, the first Jews in America were actually Sephardics. But you had there was some like treaty that was proposed with like Islamic nations, like back in like the early 18th century, that you can actually read. I'm always terrible at like remembering the names of these things, but it kind of laid out the case that America was specifically not Christian because they wanted to essentially have like established relations with the nations that did not have a good previous experience with Christianity.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think the move though for America right now is to lean into the globalization. I think patriotism to a country, and I was saying this on the podcast yesterday too, like where you say this to people from Texas and they're like, how could you say this? It's like, what is patriotism? It's a step away from nationalism, and they are these meaningless lines. Like, I mean, people come and draw these lines and we got to live by them, and we're proud of like I came out of my mom on this side of the line versus that side of the line. It's like America's move right now is to go globalist. It's kind of like with environmental stuff, but then India and China are always going to be mad because it's like with environmental stuff, America gets rich and then they say, hey, let's take care of the environment. India and China says, fuck you, we got to take care of our people now. Like, it's the only way to come up is to destroy the environment. We're basically taking it all out and feeding people with it. It's the only way we know how to do it, maybe. Not the only way, but like, it's the easiest way, the cheapest way. So now I think with America, they need to move on into like a global thing, like a Star Trek.
The thing that worries me about America.
That was Yang.
Yeah.
The thing that worries about the American empire in particular is even as we're on the downside, our empire was built on the ability to project force over long distances. And neither India nor China can really compete with us on that level. I think China and India can defend themselves well and their local regions, but like I fear the temper tantrum are dying like
or maybe like the best idea is just to be like chill, like Canada. Like Canada never pisses off countries or like bothers them, and like everybody is like they're such a non-toxic, calm people. I don't know if you can help me.
Yeah,
except for when it comes to the Aborigine.
Yeah, no, except for that. Well, which we mostly ignore though. Like the way we deal with Indigenous people in Canada, we don't treat them like, oh, let's suppress them. We treat it like, hey, let's just not talk about it. Like it's a different thing of like I feel like in America there's a little more like open, maybe, hey, if you don't like it here, get out of here kind of attitude. Whereas in Canada, it's like, oh, that's terrible that's happening. Okay, bye.
It's a divisive bit of American subculture, like on like the Northeast, it's like that. But in like the South, people don't talk about some things. Anyway, sorry, go on.
We are such a large and divided
I'm
country.
going to agree with
We have
Ariel.
of anything.
Yeah. Sorry, Ariel.
I'm
on
going to
what?
agree with Ariel that I think that I'm going to agree with Ariel that and even if it is just like I'm just going to talk less about this terrible thing that's happening in our country, but part of it is because of absolute power is what it is. You know, when I talk about trying to get away from the United States, I'm talking about it from personal experience. So I tried to escape the United States, and I couldn't. Because where can you go? You can go to Canada, you can go to Mexico, or you can take a very small boat and try to float it somewhere. But if you try to get on an airplane, you're going to need to have a passport that they're going to check. They're going to know. And this happens to a lot of people in a country. They have to explore these different options, and there are no options from the United States. You go to Mexico, they pay the Mexicans. You go to Canada, Canada says, oh, yeah, well, if the United States send you back. I mean, nobody says to the United States no,
Canada
unless you
used
get to Russia or you get to China. These are the two places in the world.
It's funny because
maybe you could go to South Korea, I don't know, or North Korea. Huh?
Didn't Canada used to
I'm
have
sorry.
more of a like a refuge, like a had it like a bolder refugee policy for Americans and like dissenters? I feel like that somewhere along the line that like just stopped. I don't know.
Well, definitely during Vietnam. Vietnam, I think they kind of had an attitude of like, we're not going to Vietnam. It's oppressive to you. So come on over, babe.
Yeah, they were nice for a while. I mean, I investigated immigrating to Canada like just after the 2008 crash. They were not interested in me personally. I don't know.
Harper really
No,
shut that down
I think
quite
Vietnam,
a bit.
not economic crash. It's like they just stay there, fix that. But Vietnam is a lot. It's almost refugee status worthy. You know, like if you're 20 and or 18 and being told you have to go to Vietnam for the next 5 years, and especially like 5 years into or a couple of years into Vietnam, they realize that people are coming back with issues. It's almost like a humanitarian. It's the right thing to do to let them in, maybe. But now it's just kind of like, okay, well, you don't like Trump. Well, that's your problem. Fix it. I don't know.
That's true. True. Yeah, that's true.
But
there are people who are in different situations with that, though, who could really use an option other than the U.S. to go to, or a place that's willing to take in people who are, because the economic situation here, if you're in poverty, is enough to trap you down there permanently. There's no ways out, and medical bills can bury you. You know, we have a different kind of refugee crisis where people should be escaping here to get to places where they're actually going to be citizens.
Can they not go to another state? I watch these war documentaries, and it just feels like just go to the other state. Then I don't know. They were talking about Flint, Michigan, turning into this like military testing thing. He's showing footage of Flint, Michigan. It's like so brutal. I know it's like hard to imagine. But these helicopters are coming. They're like bombing like in Michigan. Like what is happening? And people don't leave. And I guess it's hard to leave because the teachers are like.
I know that it's like people should be incumbent upon them to leave, but we are trapped in our economic positions. You can't just pick up and leave if your job is what's feeding your kids. Expecting people to leave where they're at because people are terrorizing them is not a good solution.
A lot of the Rust Belt just looks like
teachers are like, I'm going to leave these kids hanging. You know, it's like, oh, you're leaving us? Like the bombs dropped or whatever, and it's like you're the teacher of these 25 kids. And you run their soccer thing, and then it's like, oh, sorry guys, I'm going to New York. It just feels like it feels shitty. I think, and that's why a lot of people stayed. They were just like a sense of community. Some people just couldn't leave in the documentary.
Even in New York,
like, what am I going to do? Like, leave these kids?
Even in New York, there's an enormous difference in like people think of like the wealth of New York City. Hell, fuck, even within New York City, there's parts that look like a disaster versus shiny and. When you get up more like towards the Canadian border, you're essentially in Ohio at that point, or even Michigan, just like burned out factories. It completely looks, in some places it looks third world. I drove with a Trini friend of mine, an immigrant. She through actually a town maybe about 20 miles east of us that is just ravaged by economic crisis, and she was like, "This looks worse than home. Like any place we have." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "The poverty levels here can get insane."
Yeah, no, and that's where I am seeing like a shift towards, I think, Chinese dominance. I mean, India's not making the moves outside of India, but China is making the moves, and it could be the new world power. And there is a lot of people, and Faye, tell me, like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen a lot of people kind of have that. That's kind of part of the plan. It's like this economic, they call it the economic miracle. They fix China.
Mhm.
And it's like an old plan
Yeah,
too,
I
where it's
believe
like,
it is.
yeah, I
I
mean,
believe it is what you said.
yeah, they believe like
China needs to
we
be.
should be in charge.
Yeah, China's the only one that can do it. So China has to do it now, and China has been long-term planning for this because of that Belt Road Initiative. Star Wars, they've got their satellites up now. They can do 5G in the desert anywhere you want to be. You've got 5G going, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, they can do a lot of things that have not been, which is why Yang was like, "How do we do that?" Right?
Right.
We need to bring that back, the cabinet position, and also we're losing out because they have been doing a good job.
Right.
They've really been doing a good job at educating their people. They've built the infrastructure to go out to Xinjiang with their troops.
I really think that this is why like Yang was always like joking about him being Asian and being pretty smart and like thing, but like part of that is true. It's like America has all these lawyers and like reality TV stars, and no wonder these other countries are advancing so much more than we are, because they have like the engineers and the scientists and the tech people. We just have these idiots with gigantic egos running everything and just messing everything up.
Well, it's funny because like the command economies were so vilified during the Cold War, and China, the Soviet Union. I mean, they had a miracle there, like going from an agrarian nation to like a superpower in like 30 years. But eventually they couldn't keep it up. But I mean, like China now has kind of got like the next generation of that, and there's something to it. There's some things you do not want to purely leave to the market, and
I think we've learned that lesson the hard way.
I saw a great video about. Sorry, go.
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
We all try to interrupt at the same time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Amish. You're the special guest.
So just speaking to that point of it being educated, like I just saw a great. I don't know if I mentioned this. I actually write for TV here in Canada, and I was watching a great documentary about not documentary, like it's just a YouTube video comparing Asian versus American cartoons and storytelling. In one major difference, this person was saying, is that in the Asian TV shows, whatever the main guy, they're rock and roll, they're cool, they fight, they do motorcycle, whatever, but straight A's. And then they'll literally take the same show, make it in America, and they'll make the kid be like, I don't care about school. I flunked. I don't care. Same show. So many examples. I don't know what it is about America. They almost respect this Republican shit. This I shoot from the hip. Or like George W. Bush and Trump too. They almost like it. They're like, I'm stupid. What? That's like they almost look at it as honesty. They're like, what are you, one of these educated
Protestant work ethic?
I think a lot of it has to do with the disrespect for the education system that they have too. Like a lot of right-wing Republican people don't believe that coming out of college leaves you actually more educated. They think it's brainwashing. So an anti-establishment who gets Fs and doesn't respect the system is probably smarter than everybody else from that perspective.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I actually live in rural East Texas, and so I'm living among kind of maybe looked down upon because they don't understand them. And so again, it's the same thing. It's like, yes, there's a very high level of we have a saying in Chinese that explains it completely. The saying is 百无一用是书生, which means in 100 different applications, a student or a scholar is of no use, cannot do any of them. So, a student doesn't know how to do any of the things that the rural person does because he knows something growing in his garden. He knows and hunting. All the things he needs to do for himself, he knows how to do. And the same thing with the woman. I don't want to just men. But a student, a scholar, has been taken out of that natural, put him in a situation, things that seem of no use to them. So you trust. But the intellectual, of course, is very useful. I mean, coming from a background, I went to UC Berkeley, so I was that scholar, right, that doesn't know how to do anything. So it's sort of an interesting situation where in the United States, that's what's running the Republican Party.
Yeah.
There's this giant group of people who don't trust anybody in the government because what do they know about us? They know nothing.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think they're not entirely wrong about that because
But it's self-fulfilling. No motto.
There's
Isn't it self-fulfilling? Like they say the government doesn't work. Look, it doesn't work. Like these Republicans, they will say education doesn't work. Okay, you've been trying to put creationism in for 10 years. Leave it.
It's true. I mean,
maybe just leave it, and it would have been fine.
I think,
especially in Texas, they put creationism. I think in some of the textbooks.
I think at the college level, because our colleges are actually pretty like strong on the relative to our like primary schools, but there's a degree to which there's a kind of like indoctrination that happens there that I think they are not entirely wrong to be suspicious of.
Yeah,
and
then financially they screwed it with the colleges.
And also like Harvard, like almost all of our like ruling class like goes to like the Ivy Leagues. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so it ends up looking like a conspiracy or a like a cabal that's running you, and I think there is a level of truth to that. Like I think usually, I don't like. Obviously, the answer isn't necessarily to be like to give into like anti-intellectualism entirely, but I think there's a degree to which we pat ourselves on the back a little too much for. And I say this as somebody who's like overeducated and has degrees I probably shouldn't have even bothered getting, but I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings on it. I don't want to. Yeah.
I think it's less about the education than it is about the kind of person you become after you become educated, who doesn't believe that they can be wrong.
Right.
Yes, and also looking down on the people who didn't get that education.
That's true. There's a lot of like people who have these high degrees who look down upon people who don't have them. But I think Yang was great at bridging the divide. He said, I know why you rural people are angry. I know why you factory workers are angry, because it just looks like you're going through all of this hardship and poverty. And all the Democrats are telling you is that you're racist and you're not educated enough, And that was the beauty about Yang, is that he could bridge that divide from the overeducated to like the not so much educated.
Yeah, I think actually I agree with you, Ariel. I think Yang probably has one of the more like eclectic bases. It's small, but it seems to cut across a lot of classes in a way. I'm not even sure Bernie's did at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's a sweetheart. He's a nice guy. He's not cocky. He's not rude to people. Yang is like so lovable, man. He's doing great. I really wish that he didn't beef. I don't know how bad the beef is, but I feel like him and Sanders don't get along. That kind of makes me a little sad. But Yang is such a sweet guy. His laugh is infectious. He's really reaching out to people.
Yeah. I think Bernie got some bad advice from some of the more like. It's just self.
Well, it was
really.
It was
I thought it was political. I thought it was a political hit on Bernie. When what's her name? Elizabeth May, is it? Elizabeth Warren?
Warren.
That was a weird sellout on him. I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're just. And then I think Yang was like being pragmatic, and he said, okay, I don't want to associate with this kook. He's old. He never made it anywhere. I want to be part of the establishment. Because you can see Yang moving into Biden a little bit, where he's like, look, I'm going establishment, but I want to be effective. I don't want to be this guy in the background for until I'm 80.
100%.
My perspective with Yang is that he's trying a lot of different things, and now he's making some mistakes that like are kind of noob mistakes. But I think he's also open to like taking risks. So he's, I definitely see him engaging in like a feeling out process and like a learning process in real time. I don't know where it's going yet, but
But
think it
once
might go
once he
somewhere.
gets the hang of it, he's going to be super effective. All he needs is that initial momentum, and once that starts going, and once he gets the hang of things, we're going to see things change.
Yeah,
Hey, he Jim Kimmel's mean tweets thing the other day. I didn't even hear about that, but he was there. You know, a lot of the problem Yang had was name recognition, and the establishment can provide you that. If there's one thing they're good at, it's making sure that the people they want to be seen are seen.
Yeah, and he did a good job of coming around. I think initially they were like, we hate this guy with his UBI, whatever. He did a good job of really making friends, and I think the podcast is so smart that he's doing. It's so ahead of the game, and it's just such an easy way to transition over to politics. We should all just be building our podcast. You know, like if you want to be in politics, you want to be a comedian. I say to comedians all the time, same thing with politicians.
And I think if you want to be in politics, you should probably be funny, because otherwise, how can people stand to watch you?
Thank you so much for coming to our show. Because we only have a few minutes left, I'd love to have everybody sign off. And I'd love to hear how people can maybe connect with you if they'd like to find you. Do you want to share maybe some social media platform where we can find you? Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Maybe some of us should start because our guest is a little frozen. I'll start. My name is Fei Ku. You can find me on Facebook as myself, and you can come talk politics with me there, or you can find me on Twitter at Palestine Math. Okay. Let's go to Chris.
I am Moto. I can be found on Twitter at MotoMotes, MOTO_MOTES.
Awesome. And how about you, Ariel? Thank you for inviting all the we've been having this week.
Yeah, with Robert and Amish. Yeah, they're pretty good. Okay, so I'm Ariel, and you can find me at on Twitter, Ariels. That's ARIELS, and on YouTube as Revolutionary Thinking. And Amish also did an interview there.
And how about I think we have our guest back.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm
Are you ready to tell us our guest?
At Fade to Brown on Instagram and Facebook. I'm writing TV, so I just post stuff from like if I'm on set, I'll just post it over there. I act too on actually a PBS show called Odd Squad. I just did an episode of Odd Squad this week, so I think that'll be coming out soon. But I'm on a show called Dino Dana on Amazon Prime. It's a kid show, but mostly, I do podcasts. I do Steven's podcast I shouldn't say that. It's called The Drip. It's our podcast. We do it together every Friday morning for like 4 hours. Sometimes it goes 5-6 hours. The election coverage we did like 7 hours. But there's like 1,000 people in the chat. It always gets wild. There's always like arguments in there.
I was on.
Yeah, and Ariel got on. Like people get on from the chat as well. So we have
this is what you were talking about. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, it's a Friday morning show. It's we call out like con artists and stuff like that and fake gurus, but we're getting into a lot of politics because that's who's in politics. So it's been a fun show, and it's growing.
Trump did an MLM and a fake university, so it all ties together.
It does tie together. So yeah, but I'm at Fade to Brown on Instagram. I post on there. Like there's links to everything that I talked about there. So just follow me on Instagram, and you'll find me. Thanks.
Awesome. And we left some of our best for last, Mia and Shale. So Mia.
My name is Mia Dunford. I am at Mia Songbird on Twitter and Mia Songbird on Frey.world. I also co-host Humanity Hangs for Humanity Forward on Tuesdays and Fridays every week. I'm very accessible. Feel free anytime to drop me a DM, write me, show up to a hang. I'd love to see everybody there. And yeah, that's it. Have a great night.
And Shale?
Thank you. I am Shale. I'm SHAELRILEY, Shale Riley on Twitter. That's the place for me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming on. This is really a great talk. I really enjoyed it and learned some things. I'll be back. We'll be back streaming at 8 to 11. I'm going to come back just on Twitch, hang out. Maybe some other people will be there. Maybe just me. Maybe let's talk to people in the chat. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But a social stream tonight. So if you are not sick of me, then there's more of me to come. So,
Amish, anytime you would like to drop by, we put up our schedule every. One of the channels is the schedule
every
chat,
Thursday,
and
when she said we should come.
will be here. Yes.
Every Thursday.
So every Thursday you can see what's happening Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, if someone you know or want to talk to is coming on the show, just come on. Feel free to just drop in on the show.
We're very open here.
Hey, I'm back.
Cool.
We would love
Cool.
to see you again.
Fun show.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.